Hello, welcome back to my channel. Well, it's a fine Saturday afternoon and I made it into the shed without overheating. So today there's no complaints. I'm starting a new series. So it's come the time to reclaim my hoist. So the Mini has engine and transmission pretty much pulled apart on this bench. In today's activity, with the help of this new tool that I've never used before, so what could possibly go wrong, is I'm going to take cam bearings out. So let me just backtrack a little bit. Mini was a running concern, so when I took it off the road, it was using a little bit of oil, nothing really too terrible, plenty of power, etc. And I had given it a respray back to its original color. The guy that did it for me fairly cheaply, and some of it sort of shows. So we've got loads of overspray on bits that I don't want oversprayed. So my plan for this, let's call it a mini resto, but more of a let's get it back on the road again, is I'm going to take both subframes out. So and I'm going to give the suspension an overhaul. It's not been done since I've had it, nor my brother, to the best of my knowledge. So it's been in the family since the late 90s. It's a rust-free car. It's had flaws at some point in time, but yeah, there's nothing really lurking beneath the surface of this one. It's been kept, at least while I've owned it, it's been kept undercover the entire time. I got it in 2006. So the interior is all out of it at the moment. Got everything in boxes over here. So I've got a new interior for it just sitting there. And there's a bunch of rubbers and all the other bits and pieces there that need to go back together. So I guess the first thing to do is really just get the engine back together. I've got all the new parts for it. There's a few things I may need, which I haven't necessarily procured, and that would be shims and things like that, mainly for the crank, for the bottom end. I'm not sure what I'm going to expect there or see there when I get it all back together again. So anyway, without further ado, that's a little bit about the project. We'll get it underway, and you'll see as it unfolds. First step for me really is just getting these cam bearings out, and you can see of all the engine components, these are in absolutely terrible condition. Look at the gouge in that one, and this one at the back, it's got, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's got gouge in it, and the middle one's got a really major one. Me rambling a little bit here, but the crankshaft, it's in fine condition. It's looking really good. So that's just going to go back in as is with new bearings. All right. Now I will actually set you up, and we'll give this tool a go. All right, a little bit about the tool. Like I said, I haven't used one of these before. The instructions are in sort of Chinese English, but what I've been able to ascertain is that this is the end that does the business. So it's an expanding sleeve here. So you're picking one of these adjustable sleeves to sit over this one, and these will be the approximate size of your cam journal. Now the small journal on the camshaft bearing fits this one quite well, just the base one. But the next size up for the other two is this one here. So you can see it's segmented, and when you tighten down on this, obviously it's pulling this way, it pulls a wedge in behind or underneath those 4 segments, which then expand them. So the idea is that as this whole thing expands, this will get snug around the inside of the bearing. This will form a shoulder that will drive the bearing out. So you'll effectively be hitting on this end. Now this length here Clearly it's a bit of an overkill for a 1275 or an A series engine. Made longer for obviously straight 6s and V8s and the like, but we might need that, and you would center it within the within the block with this cone, and so I'll give that a go as well. It looks like we've got, put that back. Looks like we've got a more appropriate size of one of these, and that's just a spacer. That needs to be able to fit through your journal. That one won't. All right, so it'll all become a little bit clearer, hopefully for me as well, as I get into it. So this is going to go in here like this. I can leave that on for now. Actually, no, I'll take it off. Let's get it started the right way. Okay, so that goes in there. And this is a 22 mil. So I'm just tightening by turning the shaft on this side. I'll bring you around when I've... Okay. So that's in there like that. As you can see, bring the light around. The shoulder of that expander is going to... This shoulder of the expanded is going to make contact with that journal, the bearing. In theory, let's have a look. Okay, holding it square. And just making sure it's not contacting the block, which it isn't. Let's see if we can drive that out. Right, might need a little more welling. Okay, that's definitely moving. On this side here, maybe that's a better view. Looks good. Slowly but surely, no hurry. All right, let's come out. Just untightening that to give us the... All right, so that's it. Okay, so there's one thing I was able to pick up in the instructions regarding the tool, is that with it, as you're trying to feed the right size adapter on, you need to make sure you're aligning the brakes in each of those quadrants up with each other so that it expands all together. So effectively just doing that. So you can see each of those quadrants is on each other, and it's going to open up evenly. Pretty basic, eh? Okay, so this is going... Oh, yeah, you don't put the adapter on until you're in there, because you won't get through that bearing. And maybe a demonstration of this cone thing. So this cone will now go here. Keeps the tool aligned. Pretty smart stuff, eh? Can't really see what I'm doing in there, but you guys can. Okay. I'm just going on blind trust here at the moment. There we go, result. So I'll bring you back when it's time to refit those. In the meantime, I'll proceed to disassemble this tool. It's a pretty handy tool. Yeah, I forgot to show you fellas what some might find the best bit of disassembly and inspection is seeing the carnage that was wreaked on these parts. I mean, look at the there's a lateral groove running right around the middle, and then there's a bunch of grooves running perpendicular at the bottom. Thoroughly, that's probably gives you a good look. Probably that's thoroughly knackered. Can't imagine what would have picked up around the journal to cause that damage, but anywho. Okay, last but not least, that one put up far more of a fight. I'd say it's owing the fact that it's a much wider bearing. There's not much to see on the inside. That's damage that I did. I learnt that if the device isn't tightened up properly, the expander can actually, the shoulder can override, run inside there and then run through, which is what happened. But yeah, just tightened it up again, gave it another good hit, and out she came. All right, that was fun. Love that tool. Okay, so what you got left behind is something. I've given this a bit of a spray with some spray lubricant. Let's not product place, but WD-40. And what you've got in here is a fairly primordial kind of, I'm going to say residual oil, but it was probably when it was assembled, and it stunk when the bearing shell was driven out. But it's kind of sticky muck in there. Probably see that one a little bit better. Kind of, yeah, you wouldn't think you get a residual behind a bearing, but there you go. All right. Do we attempt to drive in new bearings? Kind of want to, because I've got to get the camshaft in before I get the crank in. Camshaft and lifters. I'll show you why. Okay, so the camshaft runs down in there. We just press the bearings out, and this is where the lifters ride. Obviously, you've got to get all that in there before you can get the next layer, which is the crankshaft. I'm going to spend a bit of time on cleanup here. In the cold light of day, even though I gave it a good bath, there's still some scope to get rid of that caked on oil. I'll bring you back when I've done some of that. Okay, it's day 2. We've had a good cleanup, and I'm going to run some quadruple O steel wool, a bit of lube in there just to clean up what was left over, and then I'm going to clean that up and re-lube, and then try and drive the first bearing in. It's probably going to be prudent that I mark on the bearing where the oil hole is on each one, and also kind of try try and make a mark on the block as well, so that I can line things up properly. Last thing I want is to occlude that hole. Okay, check back soon. Okay, so I did the cleanup that I wanted to do. Then I ran it all back through the cleaner again, the whole block, and blew the galleries out again. I've marked here where the 2 oil holes are. Conveniently, they did scribe. There's been some attempt there. It's obviously had a cam bearings done before. And on this side, I just dropped a little mark there, and there's no oil hole on here. So it's all pretty much ready to go. All right, I'm going to set up that tool and we'll get started. Okay, all set up. Let's go. I'll try and set you up. Hopefully, oh no! Oh no! That's ruined it. Tool wasn't tight enough. What a tool. I thought that was going so well. Okay, job's off. New set of cam bearings on their way. There's the downfall of using these tools. If you're a bungler, you'll screw it up. Okay, and that's what you get when you don't use a tool properly. One completely rooted bearing. Okay, it's a few days later and I have in my hot little hand a new set of bearings. So there's 2 good bearings in there and 1 munted one, and this is the new set. So I also needed and have been avoiding buying a shop press, which I now have. So what I'm going to do is set things up there, and I'm going to press the bearings in. The reason I've chosen to do that is I just don't trust myself with a hammer after destroying that last bearing. So something that can be driven in a lot slower and a lot more carefully is, I think, where I want to be. So I'll quickly set things up and show you the setup. Yeah, what I failed to mention was the real need for the press is I have to press the wrist pins out. So it wasn't just a sort of frivolous purchase. Needed it to progress that part of the build. So yeah, we'll get going. Okay, so we're back on the bench. I did set it up in the press, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to work. It's too sketchy. Can't control the tool. So it's back to the more conventional way of doing this. So. Okay, now we've reached a part of the project where I've recorded a voiceover because the building activity next door is pretty loud. So as I'm tightening this up, I'm not really conscious of the fact that it's actually spreading the bearing open. These bearings aren't a closed loop, so to speak. So as you can see, you very soon notice that it's not going to hammer in that way. So really the only way you can do it is to tighten it just to the point where you're confident the shoulder of the tool is going to knock the bearing in. So as you can see, that's an oopsie. We're not going to be able to drive that in.
Okay, so what I decided to do here was take the old bearing that came out, slide that over the tool, and use that to meet with the shoulder on the new bearing, as you can see them going together there, and come up with some level of guarantee that it wasn't going to override the tool. I was a little paranoid at this point, so came up with this creative idea. As you can see, it's looks like it's going to work, and I can give you a spoiler, it does work. Yeah, so I inverted the block here, and you can see with that better orientation, I had better control of the tool. I was able to make sure the tool was completely vertical going down, and you can see it's hammering the bearing in without too much complication. Okay, so I put the block back flat on the bench, and you can see that it's made a good start on that bearing. Now I'm pretty much guaranteed that it's not going to splay out, and I can make it a little bit tighter. And as they say, here goes nothing. You have to use your imagination for the sound of the hammer. But yeah, you can see it going in. And here's the finished product. Oil holes lined up, just the way I wanted it. And no damage to the internal or the race on that journal. All good. Okay, so the middle bearing went in without too much trouble. And what I did notice was, as it was going in, it was curling off some swarf. You can see here. Unexpectedly. I thought they were a reasonably tight fit, but not so tight that it was literally shaving off the bearing. So this is a Houston we've got a problem moment. So as you can see, I'm trial fitting the camshaft, and noted immediately that the middle camshaft journal is not cooperating. The bearing, when it went in, as you saw, had swarf come off it. Obviously a very tight fit, and what it actually did was, where the split in the bearing is, it heaved. It heaved up, and is therefore now out of round. So that's a big problem. I'm going to hammer out that Mickey Mouse bearing and put the other one in. So that was good luck that we had a second kit.
Okay, so the last cam bearing is in, and it's not great. There's this one's Mickey Mouse as well. The join here is, well, you can see that, but I've had the camshaft in there. It doesn't turn particularly freely, and it's because of the join here. It's sort of heaved up as well. So got the last bearing out of the two sets. I'm going to punch this one out and try fitting the other one and see how we go. Okay, situation report. Pardon the background noise next door. Bearings are all in. We do have a problem. I'll show you that in a sec. Put the camshaft in. It doesn't spin freely. So when I've spun it, you can see it's left a little bit of a mark on this bearing here, and on this bearing. You can probably see reasonably significant marking on that bearing. So that's going to need to be honed. These bearings are actually as installed type bearings, so you're not supposed to need to hone them, but clearly that's what's needed here. So I'm going to have to get my caliper out and my bore gauge, and consult the manual for the exact clearance for these journals. So I'm just going to put the cam in and show you what that's like. Okay, so with the camshaft in, does turn, but not smoothly. It binds, so that's going to have to come out as discussed. Alright, so I'm going to do some measurements and come back. Okay, that was somewhat of a process, setting it to 0.0020 thousandths of an inch, but now it is like butter. So problem solved. So we end up going through 2 sets of bearings to get all that sorted, but it really just goes to show you can't trust manufacturing tolerances. The wide end, or the front end of the cam bearing was off. It was galling at about this location, and this one at the oil pump end was galling pretty much half the way around. The clearance is way too tight, so yep, that's good. We are sorted. So next is getting lifters in, and I'll start looking at maybe pushing some wrist pins out and putting new pistons on the conrods. Just give another trip through the bath. Make sure I get right down in there. Flush out all the oil galleries again, because we don't want any swarf whatsoever. And then once we've rinsed it off, blow dried it, blasted all the galleries out, I think we'll be ready to continue the reassembly bit. What do you reckon? Alright folks, it's all been cleaned, blown through, and nice fresh coating of light machine oil on there to stop it corroding. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. When I come back very shortly, it'll be some reassembly work. So this is probably what you'd consider the starting point. So cylinders have been honed and have the crosshatch pattern that you'd want. Cam bearings are installed and clearanced, blocks clean and ready to go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.